Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, for basically all of human history, we've been searching, haven't we? Trying to find or maybe define that ultimate source, the bedrock of reality.
That single point where everything comes from.
Yeah.
And for, nearly 2 billion people today, that ultimate reality, they call it Allah.
And that's our focus today. We want to give you a kind of shortcut, really, into understanding this really profound idea.
Exactly. And look, we're not here to push dogma or specific theology. It's more about getting into the essence of it, the symbolism, the core ideas around this divine reality. We want to go beyond just the name, you know?
Okay, let's jump right in then. Because the word itself, Allah, it gives you this immediate sort of philosophical jolt, doesn't it? The sources are clear.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a name like John or Sarah. No, it's more like a definition of the absolute. It's fascinating when you trace the Arabic root. It starts with Allah, which means the God, just sort of generic. But then over time, it gets compressed, refined into Allah. And that carries this very specific weight, the God, the one God, the single unique reality. So it shifts from just a God to the only reality.
Precisely. It becomes a statement about existence itself. Yeah. And that singularity, that oneness, it implies something.
What?
Limitless, right. The sources really hammer this home.
Yeah.
This one reality, it doesn't have a plural. You can't have Allahs. Nope. No plural. And no gender either. It's not male or female. And absolutely no boundaries, no limits to its scope. It's, it's infinite unity, the ground of all being.
Infinite unity. Okay.
But, the second you say infinite and without limitation, you run straight into the limits of, us, human minds. How do we grasp that?
Right. How do you talk about something fundamentally beyond description?
And that's where the Quran does something really interesting. It gives us what you could call the proximity paradox, two statements that seem on the surface kind of contradictory. But together, they frame this whole reality.
Okay, what are they? So first, you have this emphasis on complete transcendence, putting the divine totally beyond anything we can picture or contain. The quote is, "There is nothing like unto him." Nothing like him. So outside time, outside space, beyond form. Totally incomprehensible in a way. Exactly. Utterly transcendent. But then, almost immediately, this gets balanced with the flip side, immanence, total closeness. Okay, the Quran says, "We are closer to him than his jugular vein." Okay, wait. So nothing like him, completely beyond grasp, yet closer than my own jugular vein. How does that work?
Exactly. How do you reconcile infinite transcendence beyond space itself with something that's intimately closer than your own lifeblood?
That's the core tension, isn't it? If it's beyond me, but also in me, closer than close.
Yeah.
What do I do with that? How does someone live inside that paradox?
And that question leads us straight into the heart of Islamic thought, which is Tawhid.
Tawhid. Divine oneness, yes. And the reconciliation, you see, it doesn't happen purely in logic. It happens more in the heart, in experience. That paradox is telling you something. The search isn't primarily out there, it's inward.
It's inward, deep within yourself. Tawhid is about dismantling that feeling, that illusion of being separate.
The source material uses that powerful analogy, the ocean one. It really helps, I think.
Oh yeah, the ocean. It's perfect. Think of the whole universe as this huge ocean, right?
Yep.
Every wave you see, every single drop, every reflection on the surface, they all look separate, individual.
Sure, distinct things.
But underneath, fundamentally, they're all just ocean. They belong to the same single divine reality. That's the metaphor for Tawhid.
Everything is part of the same water.
Exactly. And that's why when a Muslim declares La ilaha illa illallah,
there's no God but God.
Yes. It's not just reciting a phrase. It's meant to be an awakening, a realization of that oneness. You're recognizing that the separation we see with our eyes, our senses, it's like the surface tension on a wave. It's real, but it's not the whole story.
Okay, but hang on. If everything is the one reality, if the drop is the ocean, in a way, does that mean there's no difference between, say, us and God?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of like pantheism, where everything is God? Do the sources make a distinction?
That's a really crucial point. And yes, they do draw a distinction. It's subtle. The sources emphasize that while everything exists within this divine reality, that's the unity part, the reality itself transcends the sum of all its parts.
So the ocean is in the drop, maybe metaphorically.
But the ocean is also infinitely more than just that one drop. The absolute Allah contains all the relative things, you, me, the stars, but isn't limited by them. It encompasses everything without being confined to it.
Got it. So the implication is, well, it's huge. It means my own sense of self, my ego, my fears, my ambitions, they're all playing out inside this larger reality where there isn't actually any competing power.
Ultimately, yes. Everything that exists within the single unifying field, this divine reality.
Okay. So if this reality is infinite, how do we even begin to talk about it or relate to it? We need specifics, right?
We do. As finite beings, we need language, we need concepts, handles to grab onto the infinite. And this is where the tradition offers the 99 names of Allah.
The 99 names.
Right. Think of them like doorways,
Yeah.
specific doorways that let us glimpse different attributes, different facets of the single, incredibly complex being.
Now, given the transcendence part, nothing like unto him, I might expect those names to focus mainly on, power, judgment, maybe even fear. Is that right?
That's a common assumption. But actually what surprises many people, and the sources point this out, is the overwhelming intimacy in many of these names. They really push back against the idea of a distant, scary deity.
Intimacy. How so?
Well, the two names repeated most often in daily prayers, in the Quran itself, are Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim.
The most compassionate, the most merciful.
Exactly, compassion and mercy. That tells you something fundamental about the perceived character of the divine. It's presented first and foremost as overwhelming, pervasive love and care.
So it's not just about power, but also about connection. And you find other names too, like Al-Haq.
Al-Haq, the truth, the real. And As-Salam, the source of peace. But yes, you also have names related to power and order, like Al-Qadir, the all-able, the all-powerful. It covers the spectrum.
And knowing these different facets, how does that help practically, like Al-Qadir, the all-powerful?
Well, think about it. If you truly internalize the idea of Al-Qadir, it can shift your relationship with anxiety. Instead of stressing about controlling every outcome, you place your trust in this ultimate perfect power that's ordering existence.
So if things don't go my way.
It doesn't have to mean ultimate failure or despair. It's just a moment unfolding within the wisdom and power of Al-Qadir. You still try your best, of course, but the ultimate responsibility for the outcome rests elsewhere.
The mystics, the Sufis, they really leaned into this, didn't they? Connecting the names to knowing yourself.
Oh, absolutely. They had this beautiful insight. To know Allah is to know love, to know peace, and fundamentally to know yourself. Because if there's ultimately no separation, if we're all expressions of the one reality, then those divine attributes, mercy, peace, truth, they must be reflected within us too, even if imperfectly. The names become a map for self-discovery. And if you take that understanding of oneness, that connection, and translate it into how you live, that brings us to the word Islam itself. Right?
Exactly. Islam literally means surrender.
Now, we need to be really careful here. Surrender can sound negative in English, like giving up, defeat.
Right, and that's not the primary meaning here. It's not surrender in defeat. It's surrender in trust.
Trust in what? Trust in that divine reality, in Al-Qadir, in Ar-Rahman. It's this active willingness to let go of the illusion that my small ego is the ultimate driver of everything. It's about choosing to flow with the divine will, with the unfolding reality, rather than constantly fighting against it.
So it's a source of security, almost. Knowing you're part of something bigger and fundamentally good.
A deep psychological and spiritual security, yes. You're placing your ultimate reliance on the most compassionate, the all-able.
Okay, this sheds light on that common phrase, Insha'Allah.
If God wills, yes.
Because outside the tradition, people often hear that as, well, fatalism. Like, why bother trying? It's all decided anyway.
Yeah, a total misconception. The sources frame Insha'Allah very differently. It's not meant as passive fatalism at all. It's supposed to be an expression of profound humility.
Humility, not passivity. How so?
Look, I have an obligation to try my absolute best. To strive, to plan, to work hard. That effort is required. The concept of jihad, in its truest, broadest sense, is about that struggle. That striving. But the final result isn't solely down to my individual effort. It's part of this vast, interconnected web of the divine order. So I do my part, fully engaged, but I remain humble about the outcome. Acknowledging it rests with God's wisdom.
So you pour everything into the effort.
Absolutely. Maximum effort.
But you release the anxiety about whether you'll personally win or lose in the end.
That's the ideal, yes. You trust that if the result isn't what you hoped for, there's a bigger wisdom at play, one you likely can't even see.
And this surrender, this trust, this is what leads to salam, peace.
Directly. Because peace, in this understanding, isn't about having a life with no problems or struggles. That's unrealistic.
Right. Life throws curveballs.
Always. Peace, salam, is about the presence of Allah, the presence of that trust, that connection within the struggle. When you trust the flow, even when the water's rough, you can find a kind of inner stillness.
Now, this idea of closeness, of immanence, the mystics, the Sufis you mentioned, they took this really deep, didn't they?
Oh, they took it to its absolute peak. They focused almost obsessively on this idea of the divine as the beloved.
Not just a king or judge, but a beloved. People like Rumi.
Rumi, Ibn Arabi, Al-Hallaj, yes. They transformed the concept from maybe abstract theology into this intensely personal, passionate love affair. The relationship wasn't formal, it was intimate, all-consuming.
And this led to some pretty radical statements, like Al-Hallaj.
Ah, yes.
The most famous and maybe most controversial, Ana al-Haq. I am the truth.
I am the truth, or I am the real. Now, the sources are careful to explain. This wasn't him claiming to be God in an egotistical way. It wasn't arrogance.
So what was it? It was understood as this profound mystical state of union, a realization hitting him with total certainty that his deepest essence, the light, the consciousness shining through him, it was nothing other than the divine light itself. The drop realizing it is the ocean, melting back in.
Exactly that metaphor. The boundary dissolves. He recognized he was never truly separate to begin with. It's the union of the lover and the beloved.
And that mystical insight, that sense of non-separation, it kind of naturally flows into a more universal view, doesn't it?
It has to. Because if Allah is the absolute reality, the single source, well, that reality can't possibly be confined just to one language or one culture or one set of traditions.
It's bigger than any human label we put on it.
Infinitely bigger. And the sources remind us, this same ultimate source, this one reality. It's known by other names and other paths. Some call it Brahman, some call it the Tao, some simply the infinite or the ground of being.
So it implies that maybe all these different paths, if they're sincere, if they're striving for love, compassion, justice,
they're ultimately pointing back to the same origin, whether they use the name Allah or God or Brahman or something else. The idea is the divine reality speaks through any heart that's genuinely open to it, regardless of the specific label used.
And that's maybe the core takeaway for you listening right now. This concept, Allah, it isn't just some figure up there somewhere. It's the reality that surrounds you, that you breathe, that you exist within.
Yeah, when you feel that genuine, unselfish compassion for someone, that feeling is a reflection of Ar-Rahman, the compassionate. When you look up at the night sky and just feel small but connected, that sense of awe, that feeling, that's the infinite, that's Allah kind of whispering to your soul.
So knowing Allah isn't just about believing a doctrine.
Not primarily. It's about experiencing this oneness, this infinite presence in the everyday moments of your life. It's meant to be a living relationship with reality itself.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question to ponder, doesn't it? Especially building on that universal idea.
Go on.
Well, if the sources say this one reality is beyond all names and that different paths, God, Brahman, Tao, Allah, ultimately lead back to the same source,
yeah.
How does really taking that on board, acknowledging that fundamental unity, how does that change how you view other beliefs or maybe even the truth you hold yourself? Does it soften the boundaries?
That's definitely something to sit with. It requires some real contemplation, doesn't it? Shifting perspective like that.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into, well, the nature of divine oneness. Until next time, we wish you peace.
Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum.